How do you do it? How do you keep going, keep focused, keep positive and hopeful despite the onslaught of depressing news? I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, joined now by Stephen Green and Bill Whittle. And men, I'm sure you've heard something like this question before from folks who love this great country and who see it slipping its constitutional moorings day by day. So now, in a very personal episode of Trifecta, we're going to share our own coping strategies and invite you, our faithful viewer, to add your own in the comments section below. Now, Stephen Green, I know we've shared some moments of schadenfreudian glee here on Trifecta as the president's plans collapse and his sidekicks stumble, or his sycophants in the media get slapped in the kisser with the cold, wet codfish of reality. But there must be more joy at Casa Verde than that which springs from the misfortune of others. How do you keep calm, keep the chin up, and keep moving forward? You know, it almost looks like he's done this before. He has such a technique.
Shaken, not stirred, baby.
This is going to be a how-to episode of Trifecta, apparently. Well, there you have it.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, vodkapundit.com. Bill Whittle, you're the, I'd like to think, the intellectual equivalent of the great green Marvel superhero, the Incredible Hulk. And I love nothing better than to watch Hulk smash. But you can't live on pure rage 24/7. So what keeps you from lapsing into quiet desperation? Or better yet, what makes you think that all of this work is really worth it? What do you see on the horizon that brings you joy?
Well, first of all, I'd like to make a couple corrections. First of all, I'm not the Incredible Hulk. I'm the Credible Hulk. Secondly, you can live on pure rage 24/7. Believe me, you really can. My coping mechanism actually is pretty simple. It's not terribly expensive. It's kind of along the lines of Steve's, but makes Steve kind of look like a piker. You guys have all seen those World War II movies, Saving Private Ryan and a bunch of earlier ones, when somebody gets hit and they go down, they've got this little morphine ampule. It's about that big. It's got a built-in needle, and you just jam it into your thigh and you snap it off, those things. Well, you can actually buy those in bulk, strangely enough. There's a lot of World War II surplus. You get those things, about $6, you get you about 1,000 of them. And I keep a satchel, more or less, a backpack. And every time the guy comes on TV, I put 2 or 3 in my into my thigh, and then I put like an M here in like an eyebrow pencil here to indicate that I've had a couple of morphine hits. I probably can't take too many more. I spent both elections in a state of medically induced coma. I just couldn't bear to watch it. You know, with that said, you either believe these are timeless principles or you don't, and I do. And I believe that these principles are very simple. You can't spend more money than you take in forever. You can't print money to cover debt forever. And you can't keep the policy that you said you were going to keep. This is the law of reality that conservatism is grounded on, because, Scotty, if things like health care were free, we'd all be in favor of free health care, but they're not. Sooner or later, reality intrudes. And so I keep 2 things in mind. First of all, I keep in mind the parable of the Emperor's New Clothes, and realize that once somebody says he's naked, you can't put those imaginary clothes back on the guy. So I'm having some fun watching that chain reaction spread through the crowd. But what I really do mostly is I look at some of the darkest days in history, and I'll just give you 2 quick examples. Winston Churchill in 1940, when France had fallen, virtually the day he became prime minister. He's got no army, he's got no allies, he's got no weapons, he's got nothing. He's just got his little island, and he's got will to resist. And likewise, there were many, many dark days during the Civil War when it looked like the country was going to shred itself and destroy itself and be left with nothing but rubble and guerrilla raids and so on. We've been through much worse than this. We've been through existential crises where democracy will be stamped out by the point of a bayonet. Not just democracy, republicanism, republics, freedom, individual reality. And we've weathered a lot worse than a jug-eared, narcissistic Marxist from the community organizing suburbs of Chicago. So we just need to keep in mind that the magnitude of the threat is best indicated by the pettiness of its figurehead. And it's annoying, and it's depressing, and it's horrible, but our forefathers didn't give up, and I'm determined not to go to the halls of my father, in whose mighty glory I can now stand unashamed. You know, that's my goal in life.
Well, you know, whenever the news in the State of the Union becomes overwhelming for me, and it does, I get three pictures fixed in my mind. Number one, I see the faces of my children, 2 boys and 2 girls, for whom I want only the best and who are worth any sacrifice. Number 2, I see the National Cemetery at Fort Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, where my pop and nan are buried among the other heroes of the greatest generation in a kind of pantheon of patriots who refuse to give up in the worst of times. The stars and stripes snap in the breeze over their legacy of sacrifice. And number 3, I see Jesus suspended between heaven and hell by the spikes of my sin. But it's not the picture of the crucified Christ that lifts me out of the depressing deluge. It's the idea expressed in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2, that Jesus, quote, endured the cross, despising the shame, not merely from a sense of duty, but for the joy set before him. He could see a better day. And the text goes on to say that Jesus is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. My friends, there is joy before us. There is sovereign love above us in command and control. And you and I woke up this morning for a purpose. The scripture goes on to say, consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, and the entire Trifecta crew at pjtv.com, I'm Scott Ott.